Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday to you. Josh of Severe Weather reporting here on Friday the 12th. And we've got quite a bit to talk about. A major storm today into the early weekend here over the central and eastern US. But I'm actually going to focus a lot of the video on what's to come next week. Some major changes that I've been talking about now for some time. And a lot of folks in parts of the south and parts of the east that have not really had a dose of winter in a while are going to be impacted here by some significantly colder weather and unsettled weather. I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit, but let's take a look at the map for next week. And major winter storm from an impact standpoint, with heavy snow expected in portions of the Northeast, snow all the way across parts of the Mid-South, the interior of the West. And we're likely looking at what could be an ice storm from Texas into the Mid-Atlantic region here as we get into maybe next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Wet weather continues in the southeast, but turning colder in Florida. And I think the big story for many of us that maybe aren't necessarily getting the precipitation will be the cold that's going to settle in to the northern parts of the United States and shift south and east. So we've got ourselves some dangerous weather coming up. Here's a look at our current storm, which I do want to talk about some here, producing a pretty nasty blizzard from Iowa and eastern Nebraska up into the Great Lakes here to end the week. And that will build into parts of Canada as we get into late tonight and tomorrow. Some severe weather with this as well across portions of the South. While not quite the same exact spot and the exact same mode as what we saw a few days ago, yet again, it reminds us that it is tornado season this time of the year in parts of the South, and we're going to talk about that. But here you can see on the heels of this storm is another storm, which is getting ready to move into Oregon and Northern California, and a lot of cold air with it. See these brighter colors here? This is not precipitation or clouds. This is cold weather, and it is showing up here on our chart here on the infrared as some bitterly cold air. So our map is covered, and I think the only state that doesn't have anything in it right now is North Dakota, according to this map. But I know there are extreme cold advisories in effect here as that cold air blasts through. So let me unpack this for you guys here. The yellow is a tornado watch for portions of the Mississippi Delta region and surrounding states. The green are flood watches from the mid-Atlantic up into coastal New England. Purple are winter storm or winter weather advisories. Pink, winter storm warnings across much of the upper Midwest and the interior Northwest. Red, indicating blizzard warnings from South Dakota across Iowa, eastern parts of Wisconsin, and northern Michigan. And I expect to see some of these maybe getting upgraded as we get into tonight as well. A large portion of the central and eastern U.S. under high wind watches. Warnings here in the brown over the Smokies, over western Kentucky, over western PA, West Virginia, and western New York, and parts of northwestern New England. And also a blizzard warning over parts of southern parts of Idaho as the next blast of cold comes. So not very many people escaping this extreme weather. You have to kind of get down to Southern California, Southwest Arizona, and southern Florida kind of escape what's going to be happening here. Let me make this a little bit bigger for you guys here. This is the current storm, and you can see pretty high chances of some blizzard conditions, blowing snow, creating very dangerous visibilities over Iowa, northern parts of Illinois, eastern Wisconsin, much of Michigan here. These are pretty good chances, and additional snowfall totals that are forecast to be in excess of a foot over parts of the Lake Michigan region, Lake Superior region, and Lake Huron region, as well as some lake effect coming after that. If you want to pause this and take a look at this, I'm not going to have time to spend on it, but just to give you guys an idea of what's coming here, we do also have a tornado watch in effect over central and eastern Arkansas, Memphis area, central and northern Mississippi, northern Louisiana, and far northeastern Texas as well till 11 a.m. this morning. And the one thing that sticks out to me, not just the threat for tornadoes, I don't think we're seeing a lot of strong tornadoes like we saw maybe in the Florida Panhandle, Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina a few days ago, but there will be a risk for a couple tornadoes in here. But the 80-mile-per-hour winds becoming likely due to the fact that we have such an intense piece of energy moving through with a storm, that's going to catch a lot of folks off guard. So likely storm school closings, lots of power outages expected across this area with over 5 million people in this watch. And I expect we'll see more watches later today farther off to the east. Here's a look at the NAM model breaking down our storm, and it is coming down hard in Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin this morning. You can see a quick moving storm here. This is not taking its time. It's moving very quickly across the south. and we'll head into the southeast late today, into the mid-Atlantic region tonight, and then into New England overnight tonight into tomorrow morning. You can see at this point, not a snowstorm for the northeast until we get well up into the interior portions. Just too much mild air coming up here. In fact, where I'm in Raleigh here, it's 29 degrees, and we should be in the mid 60s this evening. So temperatures are going to climb very quickly today as that warm air surges in out of the Gulf. But as quickly as it warms up, we're going to see a blast of colder weather this weekend and likely some significant lake effect snow in the snow belts area here tomorrow, with blizzard conditions possible in any of these enhanced bands of snow. That includes portions of western and upper Michigan, Ontario, portions of western New York, both in south and near Buffalo, as well as up towards Watertown and down towards places just north of Syracuse. So very nasty, but we don't really get a lot of time to catch our breath. Sunday's relatively quiet, but the next storm is already moving into the west, and we have a wintry mess here over Oregon. There will likely be an ice storm over portions of western Oregon, snow and ice mixed in around Portland. This will go south of Seattle, where dangerous cold will set in, and heavy snow expected in the Sierra Nevada. This will move into Utah and Idaho Saturday night, Sunday morning, then across Colorado on Sunday, and I will break down what's going to happen after that in just a bit. There's an enhanced risk for severe weather. This area has been downtrended some from yesterday. It does not mean we let our guard down. It just means the certainty level for major severe weather isn't quite as high, but you will see there has been some adjustment in the slight risk up into the Memphis area and close to Nashville. There will be some strong wind potential here across western Tennessee and maybe western Kentucky as well later this morning into the early afternoon. I'm going to get myself out of the way, and you can see still a slight risk across a good chunk of the southeast all the way up to Raleigh. So areas that had very nasty wind here back on Tuesday are going to have that risk again here this afternoon, and especially this evening when you get east of 85. I think early this evening, 5, 6, 7 o'clock is our best chance. Slight risk for severe weather down into northern Florida. It's not going to get all the way down towards Tampa and Orlando, but there could be a stronger storm overnight in this area, and I'm going to kind of break that down for you guys here in just a little bit. The main threat's going to be a destructive region of winds that evolves here later this morning, continues into western Alabama this afternoon. And we'll see if that continues on. But right now, trends are a little more encouraging that it doesn't towards places like Atlanta. There's also a tornado risk across this entire region here. Best chance from Mississippi down through central Georgia, northern Florida, and then up into the coastal plain of the Carolinas by early tonight. And a threat for some hail across this region as well. Here's a look, and I'll get myself back up top. Love moving myself around here. Here's a look at what's going on. You can see all the energy races northeast. This is this morning at around 7 Central, and we're already hitting the Mississippi River here, and then moving into western Tennessee and Kentucky. Lots of rain across the lower Ohio River Valley here, which may end as a bit of snow, but primarily rain. And then things are racing very quickly through. So we're going to see strong winds with these lines of storms as they move through, but already drying out here by this evening as colder air rushes in, and this turns into a Great Lakes blizzard. You will see here, there is not quite as much storm fuel as earlier predicted. In fact, the risk for supercells is relatively lower. Right now, it's over central Mississippi this morning, and then continuing into western Alabama, but somewhat of a decrease in what we expected a couple days ago. Just not quite as much instability in place. The dynamics are ripping here. There's tons of wind aloft with this system. Things are racing very quickly, but not quite a carbon copy of Tuesday, where we had multiple bands of heavy rain, lots of wind shear. This time, the wind shear is not going to be as high. It's not going to be low, but it isn't going to be as high. So I don't think we're going to be dealing with as many discrete supercell storms. But you do see here, as we head towards about 6, 7 o'clock this evening, there is a little bit of an uptick in this potential here, mainly near Fayetteville down to about Florence, over to near Myrtle Beach and inland areas of the Carolinas. So don't let your guard down this evening. We could get hit pretty hard here briefly with intense wind and maybe even an isolated tornado. Here's a look at what the HRRR model is showing across Mississippi and Alabama. Some intense storms move through this morning, and they should weaken a little bit as we get towards Alabama here around lunchtime. Still a threat for some severe weather, of course, but the window isn't going to be as open as it was a few days ago. Taking a look farther north, the threat for severe weather here isn't as high, more of a heavy rain event here, but we could see embedded within this heavy rain an isolated tornado or certainly a strong wind gust later this morning. By this afternoon, though, more of a straight line wind threat, and we'll see the rain moving out. In the southeast, we are going to see showers and storms moving in, moistening it up very quickly after a chilly morning here around Augusta. It's going to be warming up. We're going to see showers and storms. Kind of our main threat is going to lift up towards the Charlotte area, Columbia to Charlotte here around 5, 6 o'clock. We do have to watch this area of storms because it could become pretty robust, but it's racing along quickly. So things are going to quickly change here. And then we see a downtrend after about 8 or 9 o'clock tonight. Just a skinny squall line moving through with our cold front here around 10 o'clock. Looking farther north across North Carolina and Virginia, not really a huge severe weather outbreak expected, but the setup is here for a few localized storms to maybe have enough wind shear with them to produce some powerful winds around the Raleigh area about 7, 8, 9 o'clock tonight. But fortunately, not enough to cancel school. This is going to happen after things end with school today. Heavy rain over eastern Virginia, maybe some lightning strikes, but not really a severe weather outbreak at this point. We'll keep an eye on it, though, later this evening before things kind of shuffle offshore. Strong winds are expected here across the Great Lakes. We see winds here 40 miles per hour expected, maybe even 50. That's going to create our blizzard conditions here later on this morning. And we see this building up through Michigan and through western Ohio with winds likely this evening getting up over 50 miles per hour across Indiana, across Ohio, and across southwestern Ontario. We also see winds getting ready to rip across West Virginia and western Pennsylvania towards this evening as gusts may get over 60 miles per hour. The higher elevations higher than that, maybe up to 80 miles per hour. So a big time wind bag expected here. And we see this wind expanding north and east. Looking farther south, there will be some intense winds developing this morning as well over portions of Kentucky, northeast Alabama, northern Georgia, far western parts of North Carolina, and of course the Smoky Mountains. The Gatlinburg area has the risk of seeing 60+ mile per hour wind gusts developing this morning and continuing into this afternoon. The HRRR model may be a slight bit overdone, but you can see it highlights the area of destructive wind potential as gusts will likely get up to hurricane force here in some of these higher elevations and close to that across the Cumberland Plateau as well. And you see that moving up into West Virginia later on. Looking at the Northeast, we're going to see another big wind event for the coast here developing overnight tonight, gusts 50 to 60 miles per hour for the mid-Atlantic coast, as well as up across upstate New York and over the mountains of New England. As we get to tomorrow morning, these winds really pick up and may gust over 60 miles per hour for Cape Cod, 60 to 65 miles per hour across coastal Maine, and locally close to hurricane force. So another battering coming for those of you on the Maine seacoast here. And these strong winds will move up the Bay of Fundy and impact parts of southwestern Nova Scotia here tomorrow morning. Looking at snowfall here, this is the official forecast, or I'm sorry, the national blend of models, and big snow expected here during the day today, amounts of 6 to 12 inches from central and eastern Iowa through northern Illinois up through much of Wisconsin here, and then starting to build this afternoon and evening over Michigan. And as we continue to advance this, a big snow is coming here. And by the end of the day on Sunday, many places have the potential to see over a foot of snow, locally over 2 feet around Marquette, Michigan. And we just continue to get blasted with lake effect behind it, which is going to add some bonus snow here later tomorrow into Sunday and Sunday evening around the Great Lakes region. So a major snowfall coming to this area. Looking at the NAM model here, we also see a couple of other complications coming. Yes, we're going to see some accumulating snow, 4 to 8 inches on the plateau here and over the over the Adirondacks and interior parts of New England. But behind this, we do see lake effects setting up here by Saturday evening and an intense band, which the NAM is spitting out right over the city of Buffalo Saturday night, potentially 10 inches or more of snow. We also have an intense band lined up coming off of Ontario, affecting places like Watertown, Fort Drum, those areas. And by Sunday morning, the potential to see over a foot on the ground here. Now, as the day wears on, this band is going to shift southward, and that very well could affect Orchard Park. We've got a playoff game there, and that could very well be impacted by this band. It's going to be very narrow, 10 to 20 miles across. But if this shifts a little bit one direction or the other, it could mean the difference between an inch of snow on the ground and 2 feet of snow on the ground. Just quite an interesting setup coming here. The other story is going to be the next winter storm and the cold that accompanies it. And I will let you guys pause if you need to, because I don't have time to cover everything. But we're seeing the coldest weather on Earth over portions of Canada and the north central states here by Monday morning. Dangerous cold coming. And on the southern part of that, we're in a favorable spot to see a significant winter storm over Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, and then spreading northeastward into the Carolinas, Virginia, and right up the eastern seaboard here by Tuesday and Wednesday. That will originate here later today and tomorrow across the west. It'll pick up some steam as it moves into Oklahoma and Kansas, and as the cold air rips down with it, we've got chances of moderate winter impacts. I do think personally that this chance needs to be adjusted southward because there will be the threat for some freezing rain and sleet getting way down south, maybe close to Interstate 10 here by the time we get into Monday. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about there in a little bit. Here's the GFS model showing our big intense storm system tracking through Indiana and Michigan here, sweeping through and drawing a lot of colder air down with it. Massive high pressure builds down this weekend. And we've got another piece of energy building here over the Western Gulf by Monday morning. And really Sunday night, we could see a blanket of light to moderate snow falling in the central plains, including Oklahoma. And then this is going to spread south and east and bring some wintry weather all the way down into the deep south here Monday into Monday night. Low pressure is going to track along the coast. There are differences in the models and where exactly this tracks. But right now it's got a Miller A storm track, which favors a heavy snow for portions of the Northeast. Tough call for New York City, Philly, and Boston, as we may have a little bit of milder air at the surface to deal with initially. But I do think we are looking at a significant snow in some of these places, assuming that there's no major change in the model. The other thing I want to point out here is we have some really nasty cold and wind coming in. This trough that's driving this cold air down is going to follow, and it's really going to be nasty here by Tuesday night and Wednesday across the eastern U.S. So prepare for major cold, get your heat checked. And then, by the way, there's another piece of energy that could follow this Friday into Saturday. It's getting suppressed on the GFS as this major area of high pressure builds in. But some of the other models indicate this could try to sneak and slide up through the Carolinas, maybe up the East Coast again. So more uncertainty than we would like to see, of course, to make that call, but that is a possibility. This is the wave of cold coming. Temperatures 50 to 60 degrees below average this weekend. And then that cold spreads all the way down into the south central states here early next week and expands eastward. Another push of cold comes down. There will be a thaw coming after this where temperatures recover. And towards the end of next weekend or end of next week and the following weekend, we actually see some warmer weather in areas that are going to get blasted here. But do note there's more cold coming behind it. So just a brief thaw coming before the brutal cold hits us again, according to what I'm looking at in the models. Here's a look at the GFS. You can see air temperatures 40 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit below zero here tonight. That cold continues to expand well below zero. Anywhere south of this white line here will be below zero. And that cold is going to be in place for several days here with no real improvement coming until Tuesday and Wednesday in the west. Looking at the central states here, same deal. This cold is coming behind our blizzard and temperatures crash with this fresh snow cover on the ground. We're going to be 10 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit below zero across at least 6 or 7 United States here. And the 0 degree line gets all the way down to close to the Kansas, Oklahoma border here by the time we get to Sunday afternoon. It is very likely that our playoff game in Kansas City will be below 0 Fahrenheit, not even including wind. In fact, we could be at about 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit below zero. So just bitter cold. You can't even pay me to stand in that kind of cold. No amount of entertainment is worth it to me. Just very dangerous setup. And this cold continues to spread south and east in waves here. We do see a little bit of improvement by Thursday and Friday, but just a lot of cold for a lot of folks here in the U.S. Finally, looking at the eastern U.S., we warm up very quickly with the storm. Temperatures this evening, even at midnight tonight, are going to be at 70 in Jacksonville, 73 in Orlando, 68 in Raleigh, and 69 in places like Bolivia, North Carolina. We see just a lot of warm air coming up the East Coast, but look at this contrast. Not hard to see where our front is. Low pressure here is going to be over Southwest Ontario, and we go from 43 in Cleveland back to 22 around Indianapolis here around midnight tonight. That cold does spread east tomorrow. As you can imagine, the mountains break up some of it, but it's still going to be a chilly day tomorrow. And then another wave of cold comes here at the beginning of next week. It's going to get kind of stalled right here along northern Florida, but you see the cold coming down into the Gulf states below freezing in Baton Rouge and Lake Charles, Louisiana Tuesday morning. Very cold across the Tennessee Valley here as well on Tuesday as temperatures struggle to get out of the teens in places like Nashville and Tupelo. So it is going to be brutal here. And then this cold spreads eastward here Tuesday night and Wednesday. We have this wave coming up the East Coast that may delay how far south and east it gets. This likely indicates a cold rain coming, but the areas in the white here is where we need to watch for mixed and frozen precipitation here Tuesday afternoon and Tuesday night. It'll get colder behind it, but that moisture kind of slows down the arrival of the cold air. So keep that in mind. And what happens is the cold air cuts underneath a milder air mass aloft, and you have precipitation that falls, changes to rain, and then refreezes in some of those areas where those temperatures are near or below freezing on the ground. So that's what we're going to be watching for you guys here. Here's a look at snowfall forecast from the GFS model. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. You guys can see it. Here's our next storm, Oklahoma, straight into Tennessee and Kentucky here. This is Monday night. There's some discrepancy on how deep and how far south this moisture gets, but this could be a major snow for some of us here in Oklahoma, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Tennessee. So stay tuned on that one. As we go farther north and east, the GFS has the Northeast getting blanketed in snow, with many places having the potential to see more than 5 or 6 inches. So a plowable snow likely here from East Tennessee up into maybe Central Maryland and DC, Philadelphia, north and west of New York City especially, but even the 5 boroughs, Boston, parts of Long Island could get hit depending on where this sets up here Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, and then right on up into the provinces of Atlantic Canada. I will show you the GFS shuffling here. You can see this is the latest model run. This is the run before it, so it's looking more impressive than the last model run. I will say the last model run had a bigger snowfall for the I-95 corridor than the latest run, but nonetheless, you see both models indicate significant snow coming for this region. This will shuffle back and forth. It's 4 to 5 days away. We're still not yet in a highly confident forecast outlook for this time frame, but certainly the snow is likely to come. We just don't know exactly how it plays out. Now, the European model does not agree. It's kind of an outlier here. Every model is showing snow, but if you look at the European, it just doesn't look impressive at all. It tries to gather things at the last minute here as the storm exits stage right. And this is why my confidence is not super high. Now, I will say all of the models against the European is what we're looking at here. So if the Euro is right, then we get disappointed. However, my forecast kind of is more in line with the more consensus of the models. Until I see a reason not to go with it, I'm not going to. Here's a look at the frozen rain, freezing rain precipitation here. What am I saying? Freezing rain possibilities here, and we see this is the latest GFS. Central and East Texas through Louisiana into central Mississippi have a pretty high chance of seeing ice coming. Now, the GFS run before it was a little bit farther south and weaker. Now we're trending towards a heavier ice event in parts of northern Louisiana, East Texas, and maybe even the Dallas-Fort Worth area. In fact, we may actually be dealing with sleet across this area. I don't have the sleet. It would normally be orange, but a little bit farther north of the freezing rain where the depth of the cold air is a little bit deeper, and that precipitation has more chances to freeze as it comes down. This would be major for the South. This will shut down schools potentially Monday and Tuesday with this kind of frozen precipitation in the forecast. Looking farther east, you can see this frozen precipitation starts sometime on Monday in Louisiana and then spreads into Mississippi and Alabama. And the latest GFS a little farther north and west than the run before it. The run before it had Montgomery and Birmingham in it. Now it's got Birmingham on northward a little bit into northwest Georgia. But you get the picture here. Places that are not really equipped to deal with frozen precipitation are likely going to see some of that here heading into Tuesday. So we may be dealing with a 4-day weekend here for those of you in the schools and some businesses here on Tuesday. We may be shut down due to the fact that we've got this. It'll be interesting to see how this sets up, but right now, just not quite in that range of certainty yet until we see these two lining up. We're not just immune to the ice, by the way, in the Mid-Atlantic region. This is the potential to see some significant ice starting in the Carolinas and spreading up into Virginia and maybe even coastal portions of the Northeast. The best chance to see this right now is setting up around the Piedmont Triad, just north of Charlotte, right along I-40, Winston-Salem, Jamestown, High Point, Greensboro, right on up just to the north and west of Raleigh. But Durham is certainly in that, Chapel Hill. And here's a look at how it compares to the last run. And I had this up before, and I apologize for not bringing it to your attention. But you can see the trend is definitely more robust with this frozen precipitation here on Tuesday into Wednesday morning. Really, Tuesday and Tuesday night's our best chance. So we could see school cancellations maybe Tuesday and Wednesday somewhere here in North Carolina, Virginia, possibly even Eastern Maryland and the Delmarva region here with this threat for some ice. Lots of rain coming here this week with our first storm, 1 to 2 inches across New England. It's going to move quickly, fortunately for us. The next storm's not going to be as wet across the east, but there will be enough for significant winter precipitation. Florida, though, is going to see significant amounts of rain coming in here on Monday, continuing into Tuesday, with amounts of 1 to 3 inches for the northern peninsula and the eastern panhandle. Southeast Georgia and coastal South Carolina also have this risk for significant precipitation. So I would love to talk more. I already have worn out my welcome, but I really appreciate y'all's time today. Please consider subscribing as I present you with more videos coming up here tomorrow and early next week. I thank you guys so much. You mean a lot to me. This is something that's a labor of love. This is a calling for me, and I give all the glory to God who has given me this gift to share with you all. From the bottom of my heart, I wish the very best for everybody. This is not to serve me as much as to serve other folks. This is God's calling to me as a Christian to bless other people and to share a word of encouragement. And I'm going to read a passage from Isaiah 40:31. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not be faint. And I wanted to share this word of encouragement because I think a lot of us get so frustrated with things that go on in our life that we lose strength and we lose joy. And a lot of us choose to kind of turn away from maybe the childlike faith we had when we were younger. But Isaiah tells us that we need to wait upon the Lord, that he will renew our strength. We can't do it alone. We need God to renew our strength. We need to go to him in prayer. We need to encourage each other and share this word with each other, because in the end, we will not be faint. We will be walking victoriously with God because he sent his son Jesus to die on the cross for us so that we could be renewed and that we can live eternally. So I'm happy to pray for you no matter what situation you're going through, praying for your family as well. And I pray for the safety of everybody in the path of these storms today. I will chat with you guys again tomorrow morning. Have a blessed Friday. See y'all then.